I've met many a farmer in my day, and I've never known one who didn't want to give back to the community he lived in. Most of them would give away everything they grow if they could afford to. Some do that anyway, whether they can afford to or not. In North Carolina, the sweet potato grower community is a very special case. They are intimately involved in the communities where they live and work. Today, you're going to meet some of those people and see the extraordinary work that they're doing to help others who are in need. Come on, let me show you where the food comes from. Michael Wood, Chief Wood, I guess we should say. We're here at the Meadow Volunteer Fire Department. You are the Assistant Fire Chief, voluntarily. And by voluntarily, we don't mean you don't work, we mean you don't get paid.
Exactly.
Now you are a sweet potato farmer. Part of what you have when you have rural communities that are connected by spirit and connected by heart, you might not be connected by county services or city services. Therefore, you need protection from fire. You need a fire department. Nobody's gonna come build you one. That means the community must come together, build, staff, and maintain a fire department so that you've got emergency medical and fire services. What's the story of this fire department right here where we're sitting?
This fire department was incorporated in 1957.
57.
A group of farmers that was all that was in this area come together and decided they needed the fire protection.
And these were sweet potato farmers?
Sweet potato. Probably 80 to 90% of all the members at that time were sweet potato farmers. When it got time to build a firehouse, farmers donated trees.
Off their land?
Off their land. Like each member donated 1 to 2 trees, and it went to the local sawmill. The sweet potato farmers harvested. They got the trees and they built the firehouse.
Farming is a full-time job already. It's more than a full-time job, it's an overtime job. Yet these people found the way, even then back in the 50s, to take more time out of their lives, take time away from their families, and come be here at this station to protect their friends and family and neighbors. So, and that's still what y'all are doing today.
Still today. I got on 30 years ago. A lot of farmers was on then. We didn't run but like 150, 200 calls a year.
Right.
So you didn't have telephones and all. When you had a fire, everybody went.
Right.
And it was, it was bad for the person who was involved with the fire, but it was a social thing.
Sure.
We talked farming, we talked community, they talked church. Whatever they wanted to talk, that's what it was. And they were mainly sweet potato farmers.
I would guess a lot of them would come down to this very fire station and gather to talk.
The community has been the same for years, but over the last 4 or 5 years, we're starting to see growth. We're losing farmland. So now we have started a daytime. We've hired daytime staff here. That'll relieve, and if anybody comes and helps them, most time it's sweet potato farmer.
Right.
But we're around. The rest of the membership has moved on, they're working in the big cities.
Sure.
They don't work at the farms anymore. So we're shrinking a little bit in farm, but we're getting bigger in the fire department.
But I'm sure everybody is trained, everybody is vetted, everybody knows all the proper procedures, especially since I think in an area like this, fire is always a threat, but the biggest problem in rural areas and outlying areas is medical care and emergency medical services.
We're the first responders to the big people can get here. Us, all the farmers, not only sweet potato farmers, but tobacco farmers, we all have locations where if we need to bring in life flights to get the patients out, we got places dedicated to go land.
On the farm,
on different
on
farms,
the land where
different
they can
farms,
come in.
Different intersections. People know what to do. Go block the intersections. We can do pretty good to be a rural community.
Well, the North Carolina Sweet Potato Commission is a grower organization that is mainly in charge of the promotion and marketing of sweet potatoes. The organization is all about promotion of North Carolina sweet potatoes, the health benefits, and as long as that promotion is going well, growers, farmers, myself and Caroline's operations included, are going to do well.
This year they had an event that it's called the Farmhurst event that was held at Broad Slab, and it was an awesome event, very fun. We just had an auction and raised money for Pretty in Pink breast cancer awareness.
So the commission over the past couple of years has just kind of made it a big importance to them, their mission to kind of give back. As sweet potato farmers, we are growing something that's healthy, nutritious, and delicious, but how can we give back to our community? And so they came up with this organization called the Pretty in Pink Foundation, and all the proceeds from that went to the Pretty in Pink Foundation, who supports North Carolina residents, women that are going through breast cancer, and they are either have no insurance or very little insurance, and they help supplement and offer these ladies some financial assistance while they're going through their breast cancer treatments.
Whether you were a 50-acre sweet potato farmer to 5,000-acre sweet potato farmer, packer, shipper, I mean, it just brought us all together, and we have that common ground.
I'm a breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in October of 19. Fortunately, we found it early enough because I was doing all the things I was supposed to do, preventive care. And through the good Lord's healing hand and modern day medicine, I am cancer-free now. I was very thankful that I had my insurance. Obviously, we did have to pay a lot out of pocket, but it didn't break us. And this foundation found a need, saw a group of women who were struggling, and they may have been single with no support, they may have been single moms, or they may have had a loving family, but the financial resources were just not there. When you're going through something like that, the last thing you want to think about is how am I going to pay for this, and how am I going to buy groceries for my family. So just the fact that this organization exists to help these women bear some of that load and focus on getting better.
Watching her journey and thinking, it could be anyone, it could be me, any of our friends, changes your outlook.
Through just, again, the brainstorming of the ladies in the office, in our commission office, and getting the green light from our board of directors, it's a big point of pride to know that you are a part of something. You're growing food for people anyway, growing something that's as good for you as sweet potatoes are, but also being part of an organization that makes it such a priority to give back to the community and to help people in need.
As a farmer, there's so much. I'm like, why am I the one getting emotional? There's just so much we already have to worry about, and then when you add something like that, it's tough. I couldn't. I don't know, you're strong, that's all I know.
Big Family Farms is a legendary name in the North Carolina sweet potato industry and in North Carolina agriculture in general. How much sweet potato acreage is under your control?
We produce here a little less than 1 million bushels. Wow. But we also help, some other growers in our neighborhood when they need to move potatoes.
And that's part of what farmers do. If you have more and somebody didn't get enough and they need to make their contracts, you're going to share, you're going to help each other out.
We all work together.
All farmers have a giving spirit. We especially see it in this very close-knit North Carolina sweet potato grower community, the desire to give back.
We do believe in helping people who can't help themselves. And there's a group in Wilson called OIC who feed poor people, and we give to them every quarter, at least a truckload of potatoes every quarter. It warms your heart to see those people who are hungry go down there and wait in line for a bag of sweet potatoes.
In order to keep our community thriving, it's important for us to show that we are thankful for the support that we get in our community. So our giving back is important. Whether it be last year, we gave 900 bags of sweet potatoes to our local hospital, and that was during the height of the pandemic. And just as a thanks to the healthcare workers there, because they are helping to protect our communities. We have a lot to be thankful for, and so our success we try to share with others, especially in our area.
And that's the giving back in the local community. But how far do your potatoes go now?
We're all over the world. You know, we ship into Europe every day.
Wow.
And we participate in give back programs with our customers. All of our customers have programs that are near and dear to their heart.
And some of these things spread so far beyond this local community. I'm looking at this beautiful wall of boxes behind us here, and I see that color pink. I think we have all come to associate the color pink in the month of October with breast cancer awareness.
So about 10 years ago, we decided that the Healthcare Foundation in Wilson had a program called the Mother's Day Mammogram Program, and it afforded women to be able to have mammograms that couldn't afford it. So we came up with the idea of changing our pure gold box, it's a blue box typically, to a pink box. We would donate a portion of our proceeds of that box to the Mother's Day Mammogram Program. We were able to donate quite a bit of money to the hospital and the foundation, which allowed for hundreds of women to be able to have mammograms every year.
That's wonderful. And again, that's part of that spirit of taking care of the community, taking care of your neighbors. And yet you're sending that same message out into the greater world at large. Jason Brown, Farmer Brown they would call you now.
Yes, sir.
You were a standout NFL player. You had a brilliant career. You played several years, but the one thing people might be surprised to hear, you never really cared much for it.
So I always struggled with the talents and the abilities that God had blessed me with to play the sport of football. And I said, God, why am I so good at being able to play this sport when I didn't care much about it, but I knew that there was more. I knew that God was blessing me through my career of football for the next chapter of my life.
So you always thought there was the next step. You didn't think I'm in the NFL and that's it. I'm gonna play a while and then cruise and coast on the glory the rest of my life. Now, all of that said, I have to say, honestly, you're the worst farmer I ever heard of, because I have known countless farmers who have sold crops at a loss, but I never met a farmer who just cuts straight to the chase and gives away everything he grows.
That was never the plan. With Taya and I, our marriage,
Taya is your wife.
Our marriage was our first covenant. And our second covenant, we said, God, whatever land you bless us with, we're going to name it First Fruits Farm. And we're going to give your people, our neighbors, the first fruits of whatever is grown on the farm, whatever comes from the land.
Sure.
And we had these awesome ideas of not growing much, but yet just trying to feed and sustain our family, and then helping to feed our community as well.
First you had to find the farm. You got some blessings there, and you came upon this amazing property, which is actually one of the old North Carolina legacy farms. This farm is from one of the original King's grants from the King of England, and I'm talking about way back in the day.
Several hundred years ago.
So this has been farmland in production in North Carolina since before there was an America.
Yes.
This farm was already a farm as King's Grant Farm.
So I get a lot of laughs and chuckles from this when I tell people that I learned how to farm by watching YouTube videos.
Okay.
All right.
You're going to get a laugh out of me then.
With our growing family and our lifestyle, I got a lot of pushback from our local ag extension agents who are angels, okay? And they told me, said, Jason, don't you know there's people out here that can help you? Like, that's what we went to school for, so we could be agents to help you be the best farmer that you could be. And I'm like, really?
So you settled on, I think your biggest crop is sweet potatoes.
So naturally gravitated towards sweet potatoes because it's North Carolina's state vegetable.
Yes, it is.
So sweet potatoes were first, and then we started gleaning from some of our other farmers' crops around here.
Gleaners are those who, after the field is harvested, not all of the product in a field is commercially viable for a farmer to sell to a store or to somebody under contract, but the food that is left behind is perfectly nutritious, delicious food. Gleaners are the people who go through the fields after and take what they need after the harvest is done from what is left.
And so what I recognize is that there's a lot of waste in our food system. So right around here, because of Mount Olive, the pickling company, there's a lot of farmers that have cucumber contracts. And I witnessed 50 acres of cucumbers after they fulfilled their contract. The farmer in 2013 dissed the entire field under. And I thought to myself, there had to have been close to 100,000 pounds of not sweet potatoes, but cucumbers out there. And so I asked him the following year, I said, hey, would you mind if I came out and we picked some of those cucumbers that, before you disc them under? He said, well, no one's ever asked me that before, but sure, come on. And we got some volunteers together and we were able to save 10,000 pounds of cucumbers.
10,000 pounds?
Yes. So our first year in 2014, first of all, we had no idea how we were going to get those crops in the ground. All right, because I still had very limited YouTube, farming experiences.
But you had the YouTube.
But I did have YouTube. And so I called on one of our local farmers, Lynn Wester, and I said, hey, I'm trying to plant 5 acres of sweet potatoes on the north side of our farm, and it's my first time. I need a little bit of help. And he came out, looked at the 5 acres, and he said, well, I don't know much about it either. He has different row crops, but he said, I'm going to talk to my friends, David and Alan Rose with J.B. Rose and Sons down in Nashville. He said, that's all they do. And he was going to inquire with them about it. A month later, Lynn called me back up and said, hey, Jason, I want you to come over and look at this sweet potato field you want me to plant. And I went on the backside of our farm. The field was already disked, cultivated, rose-shaped, and the sweet potato transplants were in the ground. And I said, what happened here? All right, well, what just happened? He said, well, we had the rest of the afternoon off, so we came and knocked out your 5 acres. And how did all of this take place? He said, well, I got the transplants, from the Rose brothers. And I said, and how much do transplants cost? He said, well, they're generally about, $1,000 an acre. And I'm calculating like, hey, I wish you had told me that, like a mechanic, before you start working on my car.
So I set that aside.
And he said, look, Jason, when I told them your intentions of donating this crop, they were so touched and so inspired that they donated all of the sweet potato slips. And I said, get out of here. And I said, well, what about your time and your help and your labor, Lynn? And he said, well, we'll figure it out. And I asked him for a bill and invoice multiple times. And guess what? He never gave me one. So that field was planted all by the grace of God, okay? And then I started doing some more calculations and saying, all right, well, the field is already planted. How many pounds of sweet potatoes is this going to yield? I still had no idea. So I went back to YouTube and found out that 1 acre of sweet potatoes can yield on average about 20,000 pounds. Wow. And I said to myself, it's just my wife and our small children.
What are we going to do with 100,000 pounds?
Who's going to harvest this field? And I prayed to God. I said, look, God, you wanted us to farm and help feed your people. I said, look, I didn't sign up for all of this and all of this back-breaking labor. I said, who's going to help us to harvest this field? And we prayed about it. And sure enough, less than 2 weeks later, we received a phone call from the Society of St. Andrew. They brought out more than 500 volunteers to get not just 100,000 pounds out of the ground, but 120,000 pounds. We had a bumper crop that year.
120,000 pounds of sweet potato.
And so now there's been challenges, there's been setbacks. There's not a lot of sweet potato growers right here in Lewisburg, North Carolina. Right. And our second year, I was riding off of all of this, we did such a great job the first year. Look, I just felt like I was an invincible farmer, all right? And then I'm
already figured it out.
Hey, I'm farming for God, right?
But it sounds like you learned in the space of a year a lot of things about farming in a hurry. One, farmer neighbors take care of each other, and they help each other. Because this year it might be you that needs help, next year it might be them that needs help.
And it tends to work out that way.
I bet it's not, I bet you have been you've gone over the fence the other direction several times in the last few years, I would bet.
Yes.
I got one more question. It's the most important one I could ask. Mm-hmm. You were never happy playing football. Mm-hmm. Are you happy on the farm?
I have a fulfilled void that was always there before, but now that I'm living a life of purpose, that I'm able to spend quality time with my family. work alongside my family, all right? Raise my children on a farm, feed them well, be the father that God has called me to be. I sleep peaceful every single night.
To those who much is given, much is required from. Not everyone believes that. Not everyone walks that walk. Farmers do. They do it every day. Farmers are born to give. They live lives of service out here where the food comes from.